In a world where time itself is unraveling, a young scientist discovers a hidden mechanism that could reset reality. But with every attempt to fix the past, new dangers emerge from the shadows of alternate timelines. As the fabric of existence begins to collapse, she must confront her own choices and face an enemy far more powerful than she imagined. Can she save humanity before it's too late? Subscribe now to uncover the truth behind Eclipse Protocol, a futuristic laboratory bathed in vibrant neon lights, with glowing blue and orange panels lining the walls. In the foreground stands a young scientist wearing a sleek sci-fi suit, holding a holographic orb floating above her palm. The orb emits intricate patterns of light resembling fractals, casting colorful reflections on her determined face. Behind her, advanced machinery hums with energy, while a massive window reveals a swirling cosmic anomaly outside. An explosion of bright yellows, purples, and greens lighting up the horizon. It began with whispers, faint murmurs in the air that no one could explain. At first, people dismissed them as tricks of the mind or atmospheric anomalies. But soon, those whispers turned into cracks. Cracks in the sky, jagged lines splitting open the heavens, revealing glimpses of other worlds beneath. These fractures weren't natural. They were signs of something far worse, a breakdown of time itself. Dr. Alara Quinn had dedicated her life to studying temporal physics, but nothing in her research prepared her for this. She stood on the rooftop of her lab, staring up at the fractured sky. Each crack shimmered with hues of violet and gold, like portals to alternate realities. Her heart raced as she realized what was happening. Time wasn't just breaking, it was collapsing. "This can't be happening," she muttered under her breath, clutching her tablet tightly. The readings confirmed her worst fears. Time loops, paradoxes, and fragments of alternate timelines were bleeding into their reality. If left unchecked, everything would unravel. Alara knew she had to act fast. Deep within the archives of her lab lay a device known only as the Eclipse core, a prototype designed to stabilize temporal anomalies. It had never been tested, but now it was humanity's only hope. Descending into the sublevels of her lab, Alara activated the security protocols guarding the Eclipse core. The chamber was a marvel of engineering, filled with glowing conduits and humming reactors. At its center floated the core itself, a crystalline sphere encased in a lattice of golden filaments. It pulsed faintly, as if alive. She approached cautiously, her mind racing through calculations. Activating the core required precise calibration. One wrong move and it could destabilize further, accelerating the collapse. Yet doing nothing meant certain doom. As she studied the schematics, memories flooded back. Memories of her mentor, Dr. Elias Voss, who had originally conceived the core. He had always warned her about tampering with time. "Every action has consequences," he'd said. "You can't rewrite history without rewriting yourself." But there was no other choice. With trembling hands, Alara initiated the activation sequence. The core responded, its glow intensifying as it began to synchronize with the fractures above. The moment the core activated, the world shifted. Alara felt it immediately. A subtle change in the air, as though reality itself had taken a deep breath. Looking out the window, she saw the cracks in the sky begin to seal. For a brief moment, relief washed over her. Then came the ripple. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the core, sending shockwaves through the lab. Equipment short-circuited, lights flickered, and alarms blared. Alara shielded herself as debris rained down around her. When the chaos subsided, she noticed something strange. The date on her tablet had changed. It was months earlier than when she'd started. What did I do?" she whispered, panic rising in her chest. Before she could process what had happened, the lab's emergency systems detected an intruder. Footsteps echoed down the corridor, growing louder with each passing second. Someone or something was coming. Alara grabbed a plasma cutter from the workbench, gripping it tightly as the footsteps drew nearer. The door slid open, revealing a figure clad in dark armor, their face obscured by a visor. They moved with unnatural precision, scanning the room with augmented vision. "Who are you?" Alara demanded, raising the cutter defensively. The figure didn't respond. Instead, they extended a gauntlet hand, and a pulse of energy shot toward her. Alara barely dodged, diving behind a console as sparks flew. She realized quickly that this wasn't just any attacker. They were from another timeline, sent to stop her. Summoning courage, Alara retaliated, using the lab's automated defenses to buy herself time. Panels slid shut, sealing off sections of the facility. The armored figure paused, analyzing the situation, then vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a faint distortion in the air. Shaken but alive, Alara examined the residual energy signature. Whoever or whatever that was, they weren't human, and they weren't done hunting her. Venturing outside, Alara discovered that the ripple hadn't just altered the timeline. It had warped entire sections of reality. Buildings appeared half-formed, streets twisted into impossible shapes, and people wandered aimlessly, trapped in loops of fragmented memories. Some recognized her. Others stared blankly, as though she were a ghost. She made her way to the city archives, hoping to find clues about what had gone wrong. There, she encountered a group of survivors led by a man named Kale, a former engineer who had pieced together fragments of knowledge about the fractures. "You're the one causing this, aren't you?" Kale accused, his voice laced with suspicion.
No, Alara replied firmly.
"I'm trying to fix it, but I need help." Despite initial distrust, Kale agreed to assist her. Together, they uncovered evidence of a shadowy organization known as the Chronos Syndicate, which had been experimenting with time manipulation long before Alara's involvement. Their experiments had destabilized the timeline, creating the fractures, and now they sought to control the collapse for their own gain. Kale's intel led them to an abandoned Chronos Syndicate facility, hidden beneath the ruins of an old research complex. As they descended into its depths, the air grew colder, and the walls were lined with strange glyphs that seemed to shift when stared at too long. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. It wasn't just fear. It was as if the very fabric of time resisted their intrusion. "This place feels wrong," Kale muttered, his hand resting on the hilt of a plasma blade strapped to his side. Alara nodded, her eyes scanning the dimly lit corridors. "It's not just the architecture. Something here is actively warping reality." She pointed to a flickering light ahead where shadows danced unnaturally, twisting into forms that resembled humanoid figures before dissolving back into darkness. They pressed on cautiously, discovering remnants of failed experiments scattered throughout the facility. Half-formed machines, shattered crystalline structures, and logs detailing horrifying outcomes. One entry stood out. Subject 47 displayed signs of temporal fragmentation. Consciousness bleeding into alternate timelines. Termination protocol initiated. Alara clenched her fists. They've been using people as test subjects. This isn't science, it's cruelty. As they delved deeper, they stumbled upon a massive chamber dominated by a pulsating core similar to the Eclipse core, but far more unstable. It emitted waves of energy that distorted everything around it, making it difficult to focus. In the center of the room floated a holographic projection, a map of interconnected timelines branching off in countless directions. Before they could analyze further, alarms blared, and heavy footsteps echoed through the halls. Reinforcements had arrived. With Syndicate enforcers closing in, Alara and Kale activated the facility's emergency shutdown sequence, hoping to destabilize the core enough to buy themselves time. But instead of shutting down, the core erupted in a burst of chaotic energy, creating a rift in the middle of the chamber. The air shimmered like heat waves, and fragments of other realities began spilling through. "Hold your ground," Kale shouted, drawing his plasma blade as armored figures emerged from the chaos. They weren't ordinary soldiers. They moved with unnatural speed, their weapons crackling with temporal energy. Each strike sent ripples through the environment, causing parts of the battlefield to phase in and out of existence. Alara fought alongside Kale, wielding tools repurposed as makeshift weapons. Her mind raced as she tried to understand the nature of their attackers. These weren't just humans, they were hybrids, fused with technology designed to manipulate time itself. Every blow exchanged threatened to unravel the already fragile timeline even further. In the midst of the battle, Elara noticed something peculiar about the rift. Amidst the swirling chaos, she glimpsed fleeting images of herself, but different versions. Some wore armor, others lab coats, and one version stood victorious atop a pile of ruins, holding what looked like a perfected Eclipse core. "We need to close this rift," Elara yelled over the din of combat. "If we don't, these timelines will merge completely, and there won't be anything left to save." After narrowly escaping the collapsing facility, Elara and Kale regrouped in a safe house located in the outskirts of the fractured city. Exhausted but determined, Elara pored over the data they'd salvaged, searching for answers. What she found shook her to her core. Among the files was a classified report detailing Project Eclipse. Not merely a stabilizing device, but a weapon capable of rewriting entire timelines. Worse still, her name appeared repeatedly throughout the documents. According to the records, she hadn't just worked on the project. She'd been its lead architect. "How can this be?" Elara whispered, staring at the screen in disbelief. "I don't remember any of this." Kale leaned over her shoulder, his expression grim. "Memory manipulation. That's how they operate. They erase what you know, replace it with lies, and use you without you ever realizing it." The revelation hit hard. Elara realized that her actions might have contributed to the catastrophe unfolding around them. Guilt weighed heavily on her shoulders, but she knew wallowing wouldn't solve anything. If she wanted redemption, she needed to undo the damage, starting with confronting whoever controlled the syndicate. Their search for allies brought them to a group known as the Temporal Resistance, a coalition of individuals displaced by the fractures. Led by a charismatic strategist named Mira Solin, the Resistance operated from a hidden base nestled within the remnants of a collapsed star system. Its skies glowed with perpetual auroras, masking their presence from syndicate patrols. Mira welcomed Elara and Kale with cautious optimism. "You're either our greatest hope or our worst nightmare," she said bluntly. "Prove to me which one you are." Elara explained their mission and shared the data they'd recovered. Mira listened intently, occasionally interjecting with questions that revealed her deep understanding of temporal mechanics. When Elara finished, Mira nodded slowly. "If what you say is true, then the Syndicate has gone beyond mere experimentation. They're trying to consolidate control over all possible timelines. We can't let that happen." With the Resistance's support, Elara gained access to resources and expertise she desperately needed. Together, they devised a plan to infiltrate the Syndicate's central headquarters, a fortress suspended in the eye of a temporal storm. Approaching the fortress was no easy feat. The temporal storm surrounding it churned violently, distorting space and time in unpredictable ways. Ships attempting to breach it often vanished entirely, never to return. To navigate safely, Elara modified their vessel with shielding derived from the Eclipse core's design. As they entered the storm, reality bent and twisted around them. Time seemed to slow, then accelerate, leaving everyone disoriented. Instruments malfunctioned, and voices, some familiar, others alien, whispered hauntingly in their ears. Finally, they reached the fortress, its sleek black surface reflecting the chaotic energies swirling around it. Inside, they encountered defenses unlike anything they'd faced before. Automated drones capable of predicting their movements, traps that exploited temporal anomalies, and guardians whose bodies phased between solid matter and pure energy. Despite the odds, Elara and her team pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that failure meant the end of existence itself. Deep within the fortress, Elara came face to face with the mastermind behind the Syndicate's operations. Dr. Elias Voss, or rather, a version of him from an alternate timeline. He appeared older, his once kind eyes now cold and calculating. "Elias!" Elara gasped, struggling to reconcile the man before her with the mentor she remembered. "Ah, Elara," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You always were my most promising student. A shame you couldn't see the bigger picture." Voss revealed that the fractures weren't accidental. They were part of a grand design to create a single, unified timeline under his control. By eliminating divergent possibilities, he believed he could achieve perfect order. "You're insane," Elara spat. "This isn't order. It's tyranny. Voss smirked. History will judge me kindly, I assure you. As Alara stared down Voss, her mind raced with conflicting emotions. This man, her mentor, the person who had inspired her love for temporal physics, was now the architect of humanity's downfall. Yet, she couldn't deny the brilliance in his madness. His vision of a unified timeline was seductive in its simplicity. No more wars, no more suffering, just one perfect reality. But perfection came at a cost. Billions would vanish, erased from existence as their timelines were overwritten. Alternate versions of herself, Kale, and countless others would cease to be. Was that truly worth it? You think you're saving us? Alara said, her voice trembling with anger and sorrow. But all you're doing is destroying what makes us human, the choices we make, the lives we live. You're not creating order. You're imposing tyranny. Voss sighed, almost pityingly. You're too close to the problem, Alara. Sometimes sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Can't you see that? Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the fortress. The Resistance's assault on the outer defenses had breached critical systems, destabilizing the temporal storms surrounding them. Time itself began to unravel faster, threatening to consume everything, including Voss's carefully constructed plans. Enough talk, Voss growled, activating a control panel. The room shifted violently, pulling fragments of alternate realities into their space. Shadows of other versions of Alara appeared, each representing a different path she could have taken. Some pleaded with her to stop Voss, while others urged her to join him. This ends now, Alara declared, drawing strength from the chaos around her. She knew what she had to do. With time running out, Alara and her team regrouped outside the central chamber. The Resistance fighters fought valiantly, holding off waves of Syndicate enforcers, but casualties mounted. Mira Solon led the charge, her tactical genius turning the tide in key moments. Yet even she couldn't hold back the relentless tide forever. We can't keep this up much longer, Kale shouted over the din of battle. If we don't take out the core soon, none of this will matter. Alara nodded grimly. I'll go after Voss. You stay here and hold the line. No way, Kale shot back. You're not facing him alone. We stick together. That's how we survive. Reluctantly, Alara agreed. Together, they forged ahead, navigating corridors warped by temporal distortions. Pieces of their past encounters replayed around them like ghostly echoes, a reminder of how far they'd come and how much they stood to lose. When they finally reached the heart of the fortress, they found Voss standing before a massive console connected to the Eclipse core prototype. It pulsed erratically, feeding energy into the temporal storm outside. The fractures in the sky grew wider, swallowing stars and planets whole. You're too late, Voss sneered. The process is irreversible. Soon, only my chosen timeline will remain. Not if I have anything to say about it, Alara replied, stepping forward. What followed was a desperate struggle, not just against Voss, but against the collapsing fabric of reality itself. As Alara engaged him in combat, the environment shifted unpredictably. Floors turned to liquid, walls folded inward, and gravity fluctuated wildly. Each strike between them sent shockwaves rippling through time, causing fragments of alternate realities to bleed into their own. Kale provided cover, fending off automated drones and disabling traps that threatened to overwhelm them. Meanwhile, Mira coordinated the remaining resistance forces, buying precious seconds for Alara to confront Voss directly. You can't win, Voss taunted as he deflected another blow. Even if you destroy the core, the damage is done. Everything will collapse. Alara refused to give in to despair. Summoning every ounce of determination, she focused on the truth behind his words. He was right, the fractures were beyond repair. But perhaps there was another way. I'm not here to destroy your plan, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. I'm here to rewrite it. With that, she activated a fail-safe protocol hidden within the Eclipse core's design, a last resort meant to reset the timeline entirely. The device emitted a blinding light, freezing everyone in place as waves of energy radiated outward. When the light faded, Alara found herself standing in a world both familiar and foreign. The fractures in the sky were gone, replaced by a clear expanse dotted with stars. Buildings stood intact, streets buzzed with life, and people moved freely without the haze of confusion or fear. But something felt off. Memories of the previous timeline lingered faintly, like dreams slipping away upon waking. She remembered Kale, Mira, and the Resistance, but none of them seemed to recognize her now. Did it work? She wondered aloud, clutching the Eclipse core tightly. Had she saved humanity, or merely created a new kind of prison? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden realization. Voss was still alive. Though weakened, he lurked in the shadows, plotting his next move. The victory was temporary at best. Determined to finish what she started, Alara set out to track down Voss once more. Along the way, she encountered remnants of the Resistance, scattered but not defeated. They remembered fragments of the old timeline, enough to understand the stakes. "You've changed things," Mira told her during a brief reunion. "But the Syndicate isn't gone, they're adapting. And so must we." Together, they devised a new strategy, leveraging the Eclipse core's capabilities to stabilize the timeline rather than overwrite it. It was risky, but it offered hope, not just for survival but for coexistence among the fractured realities. Alara realized that true balance required acceptance of imperfection. No single timeline could encompass the richness of human experience. Instead, she aimed to create a nexus point where multiple timelines could intersect peacefully. Implementing the Nexus protocol required aligning specific anchor points across various timelines, a task that demanded precision and sacrifice. Alara volunteered to serve as the primary anchor, knowing full well the toll it would take on her body and mind. As the process began, she experienced flashes of countless lives, some joyful, others tragic. Each memory reinforced her resolve to protect the delicate web of existence. Her allies worked tirelessly to maintain stability, fighting off Syndicate agents determined to sabotage their efforts. In the final moments, Alara faced Voss one last time. Weakened but defiant, he attempted to hijack the Nexus, intending to merge all timelines under his control. But Alara anticipated his move, using the Eclipse core to sever his connection permanently. "You underestimated me," she whispered as he dissolved into nothingness. The Nexus stabilized, forming a bridge between timelines. Fragments of alternate realities coexisted harmoniously, allowing individuals to explore different paths without fear of collapse. Humanity thrived in ways previously unimaginable, embracing diversity not just among cultures but across dimensions. Alara, however, paid a heavy price. The strain of anchoring the Nexus left her physically frail, her consciousness tethered to the flow of time itself. She became a guardian of sorts, watching over the fragile balance she had fought so hard to achieve. Though unable to fully participate in the world she saved, Alara found solace in knowing that her sacrifices hadn't been in vain. From her vantage point within the Nexus, she witnessed acts of kindness, courage, and unity that reminded her why she had chosen this path. Years passed, and stories of Alara Quinn spread far and wide. To some, she was a hero, to others a myth. Monuments were erected in her honor, and scholars studied the Nexus protocol as a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Among those inspired by her legacy was a young scientist named Lyra Venn, whose fascination with temporal mechanics mirrored Alara's own journey. Lyra dedicated her life to studying the Nexus, seeking ways to expand its reach and ensure its longevity. One day, while analyzing the Nexus's core, Lyra discovered a message encoded within its structure. A final note from Alara. "To whoever finds this, never stop questioning, never stop exploring. The future is yours to shape." Lyra carried Alara's words with her as she embarked on her own adventures, venturing into uncharted timelines and forging connections across dimensions. Under her guidance, the Nexus evolved, becoming a beacon of hope for countless worlds. And though Alara's presence faded with time, her spirit endured, in the laughter of children playing in parallel universes, in the quiet determination of explorers charting unknown galaxies, and in the eternal dance of stars above. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey through time and space. If you enjoyed Eclipse Protocol, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on our next adventure. Your support keeps the story alive.